Welcome to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
Your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
Always a pleasure to host with you.
It is, Doc. It is a great pleasure to host with you. I tell you what, let's recognize our sponsors.
Lee Kossel and Crowley. If you need help, they can help you.
Fervent Care Christian Academy, if you need your child to get in a good place of education, development, and child learning.
Marion County Public Health Department.
And Al's Modern Clothing. Tell him Pastor Moore wants to send you over there right away to get a free pair of shoes from Al. Tell him I sent you.
And we also want to encourage you to go to our YouTube page, WHMB TV 40. You can watch this show when it's over, as well as others that you might have missed. And look at it, check us out.
On Facebook, yes, sir. Check us out on Facebook.
Like us while you're there.
Yeah, and the reason why I pause is I'm excited with the guest that we have right now.
Yeah, great guest.
She's got a great guest. She's, she's committed to young people, and she's working in the mental health field. And you know, that's one of my areas that I think our community is afraid to talk about because of the stigma that it carries. But she's going to help us to understand what's going on with our children between the ages of 13 and 18 years old. And what's happening as it relates to suicide.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal in our community.
Yeah.
In all communities, rather.
Yeah, so we want you to stay with us, and you're going to be tremendously informed. Thank you for watching every Friday night and on Sunday evenings. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. And Pastor Moore, if you will introduce our guest.
Well, today we have a special guest. She's a project coordinator with NAMI. NAMI, yes, an organization in our city that's really doing some great work. And she's a part of that, and she's working in the mental health education area of that. And she's working, trying to help people understand what's going on with our young people today between the ages of 13 and 18 years old, trying to end the silence. That's what she calls it, ending the silence with youth, teachers, and family as well. Tell us what you're doing right now.
Well, as you said, it's an education program, and we go into schools, community center, churches, wherever we can to get with the youth and talk about ending the silence. The program is 50 minutes. Usually we use the kids about 48. You can't go very long with kids because their attention span. So 50 minutes and we're in and out. But it's led by two persons as an adult lead presenter. The adult is someone that may or may not have had a mental health challenge themselves, or they have a family member. And so then at the last 10 minutes of it, there's a youth that has had some mental health illnesses. And so they talk about from onset to their journey to where they are today. So the kids really resonate with that because that looks like someone they know, that looks like or sounds like something that's happened for them. So they gravitate to that information, and so they really like that part the most of it. But it's teaching signs and symptoms of mental health. Maybe it's not for them, maybe it's for a family member, or maybe it's for one of their peers. And then what to do. What do I do? So I recognize this. So we provide them with resources. They get a resource index card at the end of it. And we talk about other things, like I talk with them about listening. It's very important that we listen to each other. Listen with the intent to understand, not listening to it with the intent to respond. Because if I'm waiting to respond, I'm just waiting for you to gasp a breath so I can jump in. And I really didn't hear what. So it benefits me as the person that's listening, and it benefits the individual that's telling me what the issue is, because they feel that I'm really engaged with them. I really am interested in what they're saying. And then we talk about eye contact. And it's very important for eye contact, which a lot of our youth don't do that. A lot of people don't do that because the eyes are the windows to your soul. So if I'm looking at you, I'm going to see a whole lot more than if I'm just asking you questions and I'm texting on my phone or whatever I'm doing. So trying to get them to do that eye contact. So the whole premise of NAMI, because we have several signature programs, but for this particular one is to create a group of youth that are advocates for mental health, and that they can go out and help in the silence. You know, your parents may have told you, I know mine did, they used to say silence is golden. Yeah. But we're trying to get away from that now. We want to be transparent. We want individuals, and we have to do it with our youth, because many of us in our age category are not going to do that. They're not going to talk about their mental health. But there is no health without mental health.
Right.
If someone told you that you needed your toe amputated, your toe's not going to have a discussion with the other toes about it. It's going to immediately go to your head.
Right.
And so you can't do any parts of your body without keeping your head a part of that. And so helping them understand that you have to take care of the whole body, the full body, and that's what NAMI does. We're the state, and then we have affiliates, and so we're in not all, I don't think everywhere in Indiana, but the majority of Indiana, and then we're in 21 states. So we're all over national.
Yeah,
and,
right. It says 1 out of every 5 children experience mental health.
Yes.
And it's rising as we speak.
Yes.
17% of high school students today are seriously considering suicide.
Absolutely.
13% of all youth between the age of 8 and 15 experience mental health conditions in any given year.
Mm-hmm.
Half of all lifetime cases of mental health illness begin at age 14.
And so if it begins at 14, and a lot of times they don't get treatment or don't get a diagnosis for 10 years, what is that? That's 24 now. So they've missed a whole big portion of their youth and growing up, so it would be middle school, high school to college, where they could have had a better productive life or been able to understand and combat some of the issues and challenges they were having in school. It helps the teachers a lot when they understand what's happening. That's why we have one for teachers. And we talk about how to talk with the youth as well as the parents. The one for the parents, we talk to the parents about how to talk to your student and then also how to work with the school.
Question. You know, many years ago, back in the old days of IPS was known many years ago to allow certain entities to come into the school and help underprivileged children.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, many years you would have the dentist. Dentist would come to school.
Yes, I remember that.
Children need glasses. They would.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do the test children's eyes, hearing test.
Absolutely,
All of that went.
yeah.
Dentist. Yeah, all that was going on in IPS. That's when the IPS was, I think, at its zenith, a great educational system. What is the chances that can happen again with your group?
Well, we do go into a lot of the IPS schools. We're not in as many as we should be.
IPS and township schools. Just any school, period.
And the charter schools. But we're just not in as many as we should be. We generally, when we do this in IPS, it's a part of the health class. And so we do it. Sometimes we get on a rotation, so every health class in that school we do it.
Might stay at school all day. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And tell us, Laura, if you had a quick reference card for parents and things to look for if they need to reach out, what would that be?
The reference cards that they get in the program?
Well, just here now.
Oh, well, they can always go to our website, which is www.
That's your camera right there.
NAMI, N-A-M-I, Indiana, I-N-D-I-A-N-A, it's all one word, .org. And there's resources on there as well as many of our other signature programs. All of our programs are free.
Well, that's great.
That's great.
And a lot of people may not think, we don't often hear about, we hear about adults and the mental health issues and not having enough facilities to deal with the psychiatric beds, particularly in Indiana, to deal with the problem. 1 out of 4 adults in this nation are dealing with some mental health issue. So when we start talking about our young people, what are we currently doing in our state to take care of them if they're in a position where they just can't be in the home?
Well, there is a few, not enough, but there is a few group homes. There is a few inpatient facilities. I believe Community has a place, but there's never enough. So they could build a new one today, and it would be filled the time they open the door. And that's unfortunate, but yeah, it's just not enough. So being able to recognize the signs and symptoms early enough for a family member or caregiver and getting them into services and treatments might eliminate them having to be inpatient.
I think we're in desperate need of the old type of Central State. Does that make sense to you?
It does, yeah.
Or the Ratterbush Hospital. I think Evan Bayh done our state a travesty when he done away with our mental hospitals. A lot of people wouldn't say that because they're afraid to offend anybody, but look at what we're experiencing today because of a lack of those type of hospitals now.
Yes,
That's a good point. With Marion County Jail being the largest
Mental hospital now.
Mental health.
and that creates overcrowding, and so people who come who are arrested, it's too crowded to keep those folks, so they give them the ankle
And it
monitor.
also has increased the homeless rate.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I worked on the streets for 20 years with unmedicated homeless, trying to get them into services and into
Medicated
housing.
homeless. Wow.
Thank you for coming, sis.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having
Will you
me.
come back?
I will.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back after this.
Real people, real voices, keep it real.
Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. We're joined by Miss Yvette Markey. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
intouchoutreach.org. And let's say that again, and it's going to be on the screen because I know you want people to subscribe and go to your website.
In Touch Outreach
Yes. In Touch
Resource Center.
In Touch Outreach Resource Center, ITOR. We're an organization that, I'm the founder of the organization, and we work with individuals and families who are pushing through mental health challenges as it relates to substance use, trauma, grief, and loss. And so we work to raise the awareness on the stigma that surrounds it. Because for myself personally, I know that it's the difference in staying in an active recovery, addiction, or transitioning into recovery. So we do a lot of trainings and relapse prevention with individuals and families who are pushing through those things.
Now, you use the term pushing.
Pushing through, because we
Explain why you use that term.
because if we're not pulling is
Right.
pulling back. So we want to embrace and go into what it is that we want. So if we want wellness as opposed to mental health illness, we need to push forward. As opposed to some say hanging on, it's holding on, So pushing ahead. We're going further.
And you're
if we're
training
pushing.
families to do this.
We're training families.
12-week training?
12-week training.
What does it consist of?
Craft. The craft model is the community reinforcement and family training approach. And it's a model, an evidence-based model, organization out of Utah. There's a doctor who had, we started to look at the family unit and the ways that they need support for the individual or their loved one that's going through the addiction or the domestic violence survival or active in a domestic violence situation, trauma, loss, grief. Not necessarily loss of life, but maybe a job, maybe a relationship, a pet. Loss is loss. We lose something and it affects us in different ways. So, out of those things, the family that doesn't really understand what they're dealing with, it's hard for them to know how to help them. And so what the program does is it teaches communication techniques. It teaches that communications, there's rules to communication, how we relate in our interactions with our verbiage that we use. You can help or hurt. So it's a 12-week model with material provided. I went out and got this facilitated training with Justin Phillips of Overdose Lifeline. And so, she offered that training for my organization, and I brought it back for for my community and those that I serve. And it started last week, so we're just getting into it. Third stage for 12 weeks. And so we're super excited about that, and the families can anticipate learning different ways to engage their loved one going through it, as opposed to pleading, nagging, and judging.
Another thing I heard you say, which is the word trauma. Here in Indianapolis, it's not just trauma in families. There are neighborhoods that are traumatized.
Neighborhoods are traumatized.
I mean, and
Complete communities
complete
are traumatized.
traumatized.
Across the city.
Yeah.
And
I'm
it
talking
all
about
looks-
blocks.
Oh, miles from side to side.
Yeah, blocks are just traumatized by
Yeah.
the violence, homicides, the drug dealing, everything that's going on. These communities are impaired and traumatized by this. And so you talk about a family, but how do we combat a neighborhood?
Same way.
Okay.
The same, my opinion. Having those conversations, and I know that it's a lot of conversations going on now, or people are attempting to figure out, well, what can we do? How can we? So not is it just an action as far as putting a plan together, just the basic bottom line, underlying, have a conversation and see where people are in their mindsets, how they're feeling about what's affecting them in their areas. And then what would they like to see? How would they like to see legislation, us community leaders, our clergy come together and help them, like literally listening to what people in the community have to say, as opposed to us always thinking, we know what they need. We think that this. And there's not a cookie cutter approach.
No.
It's just not. So I think having a conversation over and over and over and over, answering questions, raising the awareness on the stigma that says you have to be crazy if you do this, or you have to be crazy if you think that way. Are you crazy if you think that they ain't gonna stop doing this or that? Are you crazy if you think you can make a difference? They're gonna do, no. Change happens, and it can happen in our communities. And I strongly believe that having the conversations will help us to start to overcome or turn it around, and it won't be overnight. And it's not that it's not being done somewhere in some small way. I think that all of us who are, but how we can be most effective, I think we need to remove the silos. It's not one body show. If we all say we share a mission and a vision, it shouldn't be a separation. I just don't think it's that hard. It's the barriers that we create for ourselves to come together.
Because you have a different philosophy or idea about how this approach ought to take, and the establishment doesn't. So
You got that, huh?
Yeah,
I
I got
do.
it.
I really do.
yeah, we listen to you, but we just listen to you.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to do it this way.
Yeah. So.
You have anything coming up? Special dates? or anything?
So right now the focus is the 12-week craft model. I have some conversations going with some other community partners on a reunification of our women that are coming out of incarceration. We are looking at some pieces and how we can develop something around that. So yeah.
Reentry?
We're looking for
Reentry.
Reentry, reunifying those that are reentering society with families, if that's their will, or just reunifying and how to adjust back into society, making sure that they have the resource information that they need to be successful and start to be self-sustaining. So those things are coming down the pipeline and in conversation. I'm always jotting, my mind is just going all the time, and I keep a notebook and,
Anything to help somebody.
what are we doing if we're not helping somebody?
Tell us how to get in touch with you right over in Tim.
So, www.intouchoutreach.org. I am Yvette Markey, executive producer. There's a contact form that'll pop. If you fill that out, that will subscribe you to our newsletters and upcoming events. So yeah.
Well, all the best to your organization.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
I
welcome.
really
Thank
do.
you for coming. You've been a great guest.
I appreciate that.
Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back in just a moment with the rundown.
Real people, real voices, keep it real.
Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Dr. Wayne Moore.
I'm your executive producer, Faith McKinney.
And a wonderful couple of segments there.
Yeah, one of Miss Henderson talked about Nomni, I believe it was, and talked about how she's combating suicide rates and mental illness with
Young people.
young people, 13 to 18 years old,
Yeah.
and creating communication levels with parents and trying to go into the school system to help these children. That's phenomenal. I think she's doing a great job.
Yeah, they want volunteers too. One of the things that she told me was that they need volunteers to help in that effort.
Yeah, need volunteers. You know, it seems like we need volunteers in every aspect of
Seems like it.
Yeah, yeah. And then we also had the young lady,
Yvette Markey.
Miss Markey. She's she's in the mental health field, and she's trying to help combat the issues with communicating with overdoses and things of that nature.
More mental health.
More mental health, and so we're living in a sick world, you know, and so
I like what she said about preventing relapse.
yeah, yeah.
Because you have the care and bring the person to where they're healthy, and then a lot of times if you don't have the aftercare,
Yeah,
then you relapse.
That's
Really,
right. That's right. I think we all go through it, not necessarily with drugs, but you know, in life, if we don't get the nurturing and care that we need, yeah, we'll go back. So the same with people who have addiction problems. They need care.
Yeah, what she's doing with her organization, hopefully it can continue to grow.
I hope she can find resources to grow it. I mean, you know, and that would be important as well.
Yeah. Thank you all for being so committed and faithful to watch the show. Please remember that you can go to WHMB TV 40 and watch this show when it's over, as well as other shows you might have missed. And our sponsors, please support them: Lee Castle and Crawley, Fervent Care Christian Academy,
Marion County Public Health Department,
and Owl's Modern Clothing and Shoes. Easter Resurrection Sunday's coming up, and you can be all prepared for that big day. We'll see you next time.